Hello and welcome to the next edition of the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation. Stay with us now to learn how agile businesses are fending off disruption in favor of innovation. Our next case study highlights how Internet of Things adoption means more than just scaling up networks. The complexity and novel architectural demands of IoT requires a rethinking of the edge of nearly any enterprise. We'll now explore how implementing IoT strategies is not a one-size-fits-all endeavor, nor can it be bought off the shelf. What's more, those new to the computational hive and analytical edge attributes of IoT are discovering that it takes a team approach. Here to rationalize how many disparate parts of an effective IoT fabric come together, we're joined by Tushar Halgali, Senior Manager in the Technology Strategy and Architecture Practice at Deloitte Consulting in San Francisco. We're also here with Jeff Carlett, Senior Director of Technology Solutions at HPE Strategic Alliance. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, welcome. Nice to be here, Dana.
And welcome, Tushar.
Hey, Dana. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
I'm glad you could join us. Let's start at sort of a high level. What's driving a lot of this? What are some of the top trends that are making organizations recognize the importance of IoT and therefore starting to think about what the architectural implications are and how to be ready for that? Jeff?
Yeah, we are at the cusp of a very, very large movement of digitizing entire value chains. Organizations, with the advent of more and more things connected to the internet, go look at your Nest thermostats and your sensors that are on everything now. The connectivity of that back to the data center to do analytics and real-time actions from that is critical for businesses to reach that next level of efficiencies and to maintain their competitiveness in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. And Tushar, this is a different type of network requirement set, right? We're dealing with data types, speeds, we're dealing with volumes in places we hadn't seen before. What is sort of fundamentally the obstacle that organizations are facing as they look at their current infrastructure and the need to adapt?
So one of the really interesting things we've seen is that this is traditionally when organizations have been solving technology-related problems, it's all IT-related problems. There was this whole concept of M2M, machine-to-machine, a while back. It connected machines to internet, but it was a very small segment of sorts. Now what we're trying to do is we're getting machines to connect to the internet and have them communicate with one another. So there's a lot of complexities involved in not just the IT pieces, but having the OT or the operational technology connect to the IT world. Mm-hmm. So it creates a very complex ecosystem of components.
Just for the understanding of our audience, let's parse out right now the operational technology and the IT or information technology. How do you describe those? Why should we understand and appreciate how different they are?
Yeah, yes. When we think of operational technology or OT, you think of there are long-standing companies out there, Bosch, National Instruments, many other companies that have been instrumenting, if you will, sensors for operations, for shop floors, for oil and gas, and every pump being sensed. The problem, though, is that those sensors humans would have to go interact a lot around those sensors to go remediate or to understand when something has failed. A bearing on a pump has failed. What's key here, though, is your IT, your core data center technologies, which HPE is leading the market in, has the ability to run analytics and to provide intelligence and insights from that sensor data. So when you can connect the OT devices with the IT, whether it be in the data center or actually delivering that IT to the edge, which we call the intelligent edge, you can actually do your insights and create your feedback and provide corrective actions before things fail rather than waiting.
So if I understand it, that failed ball bearing on some device isn't just alerting the shop floor, it's in fact automating and kicking off a process where the inventory is checked. If it's not there, the supply chain is checked, the order is put into place, it's delivered and ready to install before any kind of breakdown. Or did I oversimplify that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair representation. We're working really closely with a company called Flowserve, and we're actually building the telemetry within the pumps to provide when a bearing or cavitation happens or a bearing is starting to wear out, it will actually predict the mean time for failure and alert and immediately. So it's all truly connected, and it will allow that. It will tell you when it's going to actually fail, and it provides that access of fixing it ahead of time or on a scheduled maintenance rather than downtime. Because downtime in an oil production facility or any business can cost millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. Tushar, are there any other examples that you can think of that illustrate the power and importance of OT and IT together?
Sure. So, if our listeners ever get a chance to check out one of the keynote speakers here, which is on the intelligent edge, there's a really good presentation by PTC, ThingWorks Software, which is an IoT platform, and the Edgeline servers. And a really unique situation, or I shouldn't say unique, it's very common in a manufacturing facility, is when you have, say, conveyor belts that need certain improvements, and they're constantly producing things, and they're part of the production facility. Now, we all know as they make things, it's all tied to the revenue of the organization. The minute it shuts down, there's problems. Now, maintenance needs to be done on those machines, but you don't want to do them too quickly, because then you're just spending money and it's not efficient. You don't want them too late, because then there's downtime. So you want to find the equilibrium between the two. So IoT allows figuring out what the right window is when that operation, that activity of maintenance needs to be done. Mm-hmm. So if there is a valve problem and something goes down, very quickly, because sensors are tracking data and we're analyzing information, the minute that data goes off a certain baseline, it'll tell you that, okay, there's a problem. And then it'll say there's a potential that in the future a major problem will happen. Mm. Now, a technician can come in. Well, the next thing is it'll actually generate a work order, which then feeds in from the OT systems into the IT systems, right? And that's all automatic. And then when the worker comes in, the mechanic, to try and solve those problems, the other interesting thing is the act part of this entire journey is where they can use augmented reality or virtual reality to look at the machine and then be able to actually fix the problem. And so it's actually a closed loop ecosystem that would not have happened in the M2M days. So it's just sort of the next layer of maturity or advancement which IoT brings up.
Right. We can measure, we can analyze, we can communicate. That gives us a lot of power. We can perhaps move towards minimum viable operations, where we're not putting parts in place when they're not needed, but we're not going down. It sort of reminds me of what happened on the financial side of businesses a decade or two ago, where you wanted to have spend management, and you couldn't do it until you knew where all your monies were, where all the bills had to be paid. But in doing so, you can really manage things very precisely. So it's a maturity coming to devices, analog, digital, what have you. It's pretty exciting. The impact here financially, Jeff?
Well, huge. Right now, IDC, a well-known analyst firm we use, predicts IoT to represent about $1.4 trillion opportunity by 2020. So a huge, huge, huge opportunity, not only for incremental revenue for businesses, but increased efficiencies, reducing costs, reducing downtime, reducing risk. So huge, huge, tremendous benefit. And my belief is that companies need to strongly consider a movement to digitizing the value chains to remain competitive in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we understand why it's important. We have a pretty good idea of what you need to do. Now, how do you get there? Is this big data at the edge? I heard a comment just the other day that there's no bigger data than edge data and IoT data. So we're going to have to manage some scales here that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I understand, the jet engines that are being used are generating, 5 terabytes of data, every time it lands or takes off, right? Imagine that by every plane, every engine that's flying in the sky every day, every year. So the amount of data is huge. This kind of brings me to a very unique way that HPE is approaching this, and we truly believe we are leaders in the data center now. So we are leaders within IT. We are taking that design, that implementation, that knowledge, and we're actually designing infrastructure, data center quality infrastructure that's actually put on the edge, ruggedizing our compute, our analytics, and providing the ability of doing that analytics, doing the machine learning, doing it all locally rather than sending all that data to the cloud for analytics. Imagine how expensive that would be. So that is truly one approach we are taking within HPE. Right. But the thing is, it's not just about HPE tackling this. This is hugely clear. We mentioned our OT partners, but customers are asking, where do I start? I mean, this is overwhelming. This is complex. This is other parts of my organization that typically haven't talked together, IT and the OT. How do we do this? This is where the beauty of our Deloitte partnership comes in, right? Mm-hmm. They and we are coming together and being able to do advisory services, the ability of talking our customers through this, holding their hand, building a journey for them to actually do that digitization against their plans and without disrupting their current environment.
Mm-hmm. And Tushar, when you have literally a small data center at the edge, we're going to eke out some obvious efficiencies, but this probably portends unforeseen circumstances that probably could be very positive. What can you do when you have this level of analytics and you take it to a macro level, when you start to analyze things on an industry level and then have the opportunity to drill down and find new patterns, new associations, perhaps even new ways to design processes, factory floors, retail environments? What are we talking about in terms of the potential for the analytics when we capture and manage this large amount of data?
So I think one of the interesting things, we have noted is that a lot of the IoT use cases and the value that generates traditionally so far has been around, cost optimization, efficiencies, those kind of things, risk management and those kinds. But by doing things on the edge, not only can you do all of those, but you can start getting into the more higher value areas such as revenue growth and innovation, right? A very classic example that you can use in this space is, say, things like remote monitoring. So think of yourself as a healthcare provider who would not be able to get into the business of managing people's health if they're all located remotely. But if we have certain devices in, let's say, the elderly's homes through sensors and everything, you can start tracking their behaviors and their patterns when they're taking medicine and those kind of things, and have all that information created through profiles of those people in, let's say, a central NOC, right? And then you have now distributed the power of sort of taking care of all the constituents in your base without having them be physically in a hospital.
Mm-hmm. And those feedback loops are not just one way where you can analyze, but you can start to apply the results, the benefits of the analysis right back into the edge levels. Jeff?
Yeah, in the health and life sciences, great example, Tushar. The fact of using IoT as a way of more efficiently managing the hospital beds. Mm-hmm. It costs a lot of money to have people sit in the hospital when they don't really need to be there. So being able to provide patient access remotely, be able to monitor them, to be able to intervene on an as-needed basis drives much greater efficiencies. One thing I would also say, we've talked a little bit about industrial IoT. We've talked a little bit about health and life sciences, but this extends into retail and smart stores. We're doing a lot with Home Depot to deliver the store of the future, mm-hmm. really bridging the digital with the brick and mortar across 2,200 stores in North America. It also has to do with the experience around campus and branch network. Another Levi Stadium for the Super Bowl. We at HPE built that out with indoor GPS and build out a mobile app that allows indoor wayfinding, but also it allows the patrons, if you will, of visiting the game to have a totally new immersive experience. Actually, I understand they actually found in uploads and downloads of photos, they had hotspots by mapping out in the stadium. They were wondering why they did, and they had a great unobstructed view of the field. So they were seeing a lot of people taking pictures. What did they do? They installed a food stand near that, and they've increased revenues just because of strategic placement based on this IoT data. Matter of fact, Levi's Stadiums actually recognized $1 million additional revenue in the first year season, and 10 times the growth in the actual number of contacts that they have in their repository now.
So safe to say that edge computing and intelligence is a gift that probably will keep giving at levels organizations haven't even conceived of yet.
Again, I believe it's a necessity to stay competitive in the world of tomorrow.
Right. If your competitor does this and you don't, that's going to be a big question mark for your customers to mull over. Okay, while we're still on the subject of the edge technical capabilities, by being able to analyze and not just pass along data, it seems to me that also is a big help when it comes to compliance and security, which are going to be big concerns. So not only does security get mitigated by, hardening or putting up a wall, probably the safest bet is to be able to analyze when something is breached or something is going wrong, and then stifling or controlling or containing that. So tell me a little bit about why the edgeline approach of analyzing data fast and on the edge can also be a big boost to security, risk containment, and other compliance issues.
Well, one security, I guess I would say, is we do a lot around asset tracking and the ability of when something does fail, typically you need to send someone out there to remediate it, right? Well, by using Edgeline, using our sensor data, using asset tagging, you can actually ensure that the right person could be visually identified as the service person physically at the pump to replace it, rather than saying that they did it, writing it on paper, being off doing something else. So you've got security in knowing you have the appropriate compliance levels of the right people fixing the right things in the right manner, and it's all traceable and trackable.
Mm-hmm. I think when you start using edge devices as well as geolocation services, you have this ability to do fine-grained policy management, right, and access control for not just the people but also devices. And because the surface area for IoT is so huge, there are many attack points into the network. So by having a security layer, you can sort of control that, and edge devices certainly help with that. Mm-hmm. Right? A classic example would be if, let's say, you have a camera in a certain place. Right, the camera is taking constant feeds of things that are going on that are wrong or right. They're just constantly taking the data. But the algorithms that have been fed into the edge device allow it to capture things that are abnormal. And so then it can not only alert authorities at the right time, but also store feed only for that. So why store days and days worth of images when you can only pick the ones that truly matter? Mm-hmm. So it allows, as Jeff said, it allows workplace restrictions, compliance, but also in an area where it's an open area, it allows you to track events that are very specific, mm-hmm. right? Another case could be in the case of, let's say, the mining industry, right? Or the oil and gas, where you have workers that are going to be in very remote locations, and it's very hard to track each one of them. If you have the ability to be able to track the assets, your resources over time, if things go wrong, then it's easier to intervene and help out.
Mm-hmm. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to give you, here's a great personal example for me. I went to my auto dealership, and I pull into the garage. Immediately, I'm greeted at my door by name. It says, "Hello, Mr. Carlett. Are you in for your service?" I'm thinking, how did you know I came in? Are you tracking me? I mean, how are you doing this? Turns out they've got RFID tags that when it comes in for service or in any of their loaner cars, they apply these tags. Yes, as soon as you pull in, they provide a personalized experience, but also it yields the net benefit of location tracking. They know exactly where my car is at all stage. If I move to a rental car that they have there, my profile is automatically transferred over there. But it also starts their cycle time metrics too. So trackability of how they're doing on remediating whatever my service level. So a whole new experience, and now I am now a life loyal customer of this auto dealer because of that personalized, all coming from implementation of IoT.
Yeah. No, the implications are vast, whether it's user experience, operational efficiency, risk reduction, insights and analysis at different levels of an industry and even a company. Very impressive stuff. When you can measure everything and you can gather as much data as you want, and then you can triage and analyze that data and then put the metadata up to the cloud, so much as possible. So I think we've established why this is of interest. Now let's think a little bit about how you get there. Organizations that are thinking more about re-architecting their edge in order to avail themselves of some of these benefits, what is it about the HPE and Deloitte alliance, for example, that allows for a pathway to get on board and start doing things in the proper order to make this happen in the best fashion?
So Dana, I mean, anytime you do an IoT, an initiative, the key thing to realize is that it should be part of a major digital transformation initiative, right? And there's like any other transformation story, there's the people, process, and the technology components of it. And Jeff and I can sort of talk about these three. At a very high level, when you start talking about the process and the business model, overall what we're trying to bring, so Deloitte has a very huge practice in the strategy and the process space. And what we're looking at is digital industrial value chain transformation. So let's just not say what's a use case like predictive maintenance or asset monitoring or things of that sort. They are very important, but what we're saying is let's look at something like a smart factory. So what's the value chain for an organization that is making heavy machinery, end to end, all the way from planning all the way to logistics and after sale repairs, the entire value chain. What does that look like in the new generation now and the new times? And then decompose that into processes and use cases, identify which are the most high value use cases, quantifying them, because that's important. If you can't quantify, can't create ROI, then what's the point of investing? Mm-hmm. And then helping our clients build out the business cases so that they can justify the investments needed from the shareholders and the board so that they can start implementing the story, right? So at a very high level, what's the transformation story? What is the impact on the business model for the organization? And then from there, it goes, once you've got the strategy, then you get into the tactical aspects, which is how do we execute on it?
Tushar just outlined a very nice on-ramp process. What about some places to go for information, calls to action? Where should people get started as they learn how to then implement on the process that Tushar just described?
Yeah. Well, the beauty of it is we're working as one with Deloitte to deliver these transformations. So customers' potential interest can either come to Deloitte or come to HPE. We at HPE also have a strong group of technology services consultants that can also step in and help in partnership with Deloitte as well. So either company, any of our partner representatives can get a hold of us. Our websites also are loaded with information. We're here to help. We are here to hold a hand and lead our customers to digitize and achieve these promised efficiencies that can be garnered from digital value chains.
And so the buzzwords to track, to follow, to get into your organizations: Internet of Things, operational technology. Did I leave anything out?
Digital, let's see, analytics, edge computing. I think that's
very good. All right, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how Internet of Things adoption means more than just scaling up networks. The complexity and novel architectural demands of IoT requires a rethinking of the edge of nearly any enterprise. And we've learned how to rationalize the many disparate parts to produce an effective IoT fabric through a team approach. So thanks to our guests. We've been joined by Tushar Halgali. He's Senior Manager in the Technology Strategy and Architecture Practice at Deloitte Consulting. Thanks so much, Tushar.
Thank you, Dana. Thanks for having us.
And we are also here with Jeff Carlett, Senior Director of Technology Solutions at HPE Strategic Alliances. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. Thank you.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining us for this Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at InterArmor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of HPE-sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening, and do please come back next time.